from Ed Stuckey. There's 8 of them or 10 of them back there that need to be picked up. So if somebody here had ordered one and did not look, take a look there. They're $5, if you remember to order it from Ed. And I know you've been checking out the food table. Feel free as the presentation goes on, you can go back and get some more, no problem. I hope you got your raffle tickets, but if you forgot or didn't do it yet, you can go back and put your dollar in the basket there. Okay, this meeting again is going to be recorded on YouTube. Hope some of you have been taking advantage of looking at our meetings. Kevin and Dave have done a fantastic job of recording these and getting them on YouTube. I usually ask if our presenter does not want to be recorded. Steve said, "Why would anyone not want to be recorded?" So he's fine with that. I see some new faces here tonight. Are there any new members, actually a member, that are here for the first time today? Ooh. You guys stand up so everybody can see you. And there you go. Wow. Okay. Right there with the hat. Just shout out your name.
Yeah. I'm Michael from Westland. It's my first time here. How you guys doing?
Great. And
what do you like to make?
Everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Flat work, carvings, scroll work?
All that good stuff.
Welcome.
all right, well, watch how we do it, making presentations here, because you'd be a great candidate for our show and tell
All right.
presentations, because it's our members that bring their skills and knowledges here.
Okay.
Okay. And you, sir?
Dennis Hayes.
Okay.
I'm out from the east side of town,
Oh, how far east?
out past Selfridge.
Wow. Wait a minute, there's a lake past Selfridge.
North of Selfridge.
He lives underwater.
Great. How did you hear about us?
Actually from Dale.
Well, Dale's the other way.
Yes. We're both in SAPFAM. I'm the vice president of SAPFAM right now. So,
Please say your name again.
Dennis Hayes.
Oh, Dennis, I even mentioned your name at the last meeting because you invited our members to your last chapter meeting. Thank you. Great to see you. And
My name's, excuse me folks, my name's Jay Mullet. I live a little south from here.
Oh, south, Findlay, Ohio.
Findlay, Ohio, which is an hour south of Toledo. I got started, I was aware of this organization about a month ago when I was at Phil's homestead buying some wood. And he goes, "By the way, why don't you join the Wood Actors Guild?" I was like, "Really?" Yeah, and so thank you, and have a great meeting, everyone.
all right, thanks for coming. Any guests here that are just checking us out? I know there's one. Whoa, yes, your name.
Larry, I grew up in Livonia. I live in Farmington Hills.
Well, you're a neighbor of this place. How did you hear about us?
My friend Ted, and when I go to Rockler, they're always mentioning it also.
Yay, Rock. Okay. And I saw another hand. Okay.
Yeah. Luke Carnegie.
Stand up. I know you're tall. Everyone can see it.
Moved here almost a year ago. Married his beautiful sister. So I'm here with Paul, my brother-in-law.
There we go.
Good to be here.
Great.
What do you like to make?
It's been years since I've actually been able to make anything. So looking to start back in there.
Wonderful.
Great. Great to have you. We love having new members and new ideas. Our next meeting will be May 18th. It would normally be the second Sunday of the month, but that's Mother's Day. And none of us want to mess with that. So it's May 18th. Our member Jeff Street is going to be here presenting on inlaying for boxes. Is Jeff here today? No. Okay. So I know he's anxious to make that presentation on May 18th. Also, instead, yes?
Stahl's Auto Museum, is there going to be a fee for that?
No.
It's a volunteer voluntary donation.
Donation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we got, that's in July, so we'll have, that's in June. That's in June, so we have time to talk about that. There's going to be a tool raffle today, but Ed, next meeting, we won't have your regular tool raffle. We've got 10 $10 gift certificates from Rockler that we're going to raffle off in some combination. Okay, maybe $50, $30, $20. What do you think? We don't want 10 $10 tickets, but maybe 40, 30, 30, or something. We'll do something like that. We'll have 3, and that'll be our raffle next time.
Jerry, the standing joke with the raffle gift certificates is you may get a $10 gift certificate, but it'll cost you $100.
There's nothing at Rockler less than $20. All right. So I mentioned the May meeting. You can go to our website and see our schedule for the entire year. By the way, that's always there. Ron Ross, standing there, who does our apparel, wants to mention that there's 4 shirts on the table back there that are already bought. They've got somebody's name on them. If you've ordered a shirt,
They're here.
go take a look. They're there. And he's got one hat, one MWG hat that's available for purchase. It's right there. One sad note, one of our members, Jack Dalton, passed away in April. Probably most of you don't know him. He was a very recent member here. But Berg and I knew him in Rochester, from our senior center there. But he passed away. Then I did want to ask, the Great Lakes chapter, the period guys, they met at Sam Beaufort last month. Did anybody here attend that meeting besides Dale and... Nobody else? Okay, because the invite went out. Did that meeting meet your hopes for...
Yeah, we had a great meeting.
All right. That's a great place to visit. Did you show them the library?
Not specifically that meeting, that's probably the only meeting we have.
You haven't.
Yeah, they look, that library features prominently, Jerry, in all their annual plans and stuff. So they still love and take very good care of the library.
Good. What Dale's referring to, one of our members, Bob Holden, passed away. Mike Holden, longtime member here, period furniture guy, passed away early in the COVID situation. His wife donated his personal library of 750 books to us. Now, we had no way of dealing with that, so I asked Dale Osherman, who's active in the period group, if they could take them. Dale was a past president. And they really didn't have, even though they're a national organization, they didn't have a place to use them either. But he contacted Sam Beaufort, Woodworking Institute out in Adrian. They jumped on it, built a whole wall of bookshelves, and a number of us here had cataloged those books, myself and Dale and Bob Mills. And Dale and I hauled them out to there, and those guys put them up on the shelf. And now we're hearing a report. That was a couple of years ago. They're still proud of that library. So that's one of our members.
Where is that?
Adrian, Michigan. It's about an hour and a half.
Public library or?
No, it's their Woodworking Institute. It's their
Oh, okay. It's a school.
private wood shop. They teach classes there all year round. It's really growing. Got a fabulous shop there. And Period Group has meetings there periodically. Okay. Now, as most of you know, we usually have a safety talk at this point, and I ask for hands if anyone had a safety issue to talk about. If not, I show a video. Ben?
I just got an announcement, Public Lumber, they used to be over there on 7 Mile and Woodward. They moved, they're now at 13 Mile and Stevenson, they've been there a year now. And they let you roam around the back, and the sapele they got is just beautiful. 8-quarter, and it's really nice. And their phone number is 313-891-7125, publiclumber.com. But they've been there a year now. I just happened to stop in there, and I was shocked what I seen.
Alrighty. What town is that in?
This is Madison Heights, I guess.
Madison Heights.
13 miles.
By the Costco?
Oh, I don't know, I just went down 13 miles, it's right over there.
Okay, they sell hardwood there?
Yes.
Okay.
Public Lumber, they don't do no more milling at the 7 Mile store.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. We're always looking for places for lumber. So safety. Special presentation today. Berg ran into a problem that he wants to tell us about. So I'll let him start from the beginning.
I'm going to step behind the mic in just a moment, but yeah, it's the agony and the ecstasy of us doing woodworking projects. And I ran into a situation early spring, which almost stopped me from doing any more woodworking. And one of my favorite woods has been the different rosewoods, and this is Bolivian rosewood. I should have a glove on when I show this to you. And one of my favorite creations with that is called a leaf box of Bavarian rosewood and curly maple. And I ended up making, my goal was to make 16 of these for the gals in my family. So let me just tell you a little bit about the pleasures here and such. And so there's, here, you can see this one. So the pleasures of making those leaf boxes and working with the rosewood. I've been working with that rosewood since last August. And then I got really intense in it in the month of December, getting everything ready and trying to get the boxes ready to give out. And I ended up just distributing those at the end of March. It was 4 months. Of course, there's certain construction difficulties in there. But anyway, then there was the pain of trying to do that. Next slide, please. And pain was, I developed a very severe allergic reaction to the rosewood. And it wasn't from holding the boards and cutting them. I've never had any allergy or sensitization to any wood before. But all of a sudden, in the beginning of February, I was doing very, very detailed sanding and carving and such on there. And I took the proper precautions, but it happened overnight. It was a Sunday night, and I finished doing the sanding. My wife, of course, didn't want me to do that sanding because she can't keep the house clean, she says, and yet I got all these HEPA filters and such in the workroom. And so, all of a sudden, we had the pain of it. So, next please. So what happened? All of a sudden I got a really serious allergic reaction to it. I've handled the wood like I have any other wood. And the day starting in February, as I said, I was doing an awful lot of sanding, a lot of holding of the material. And so, next slide. Then it hit. Any exposure to the sawdust onto my hands, my face, my neck, anywhere where skin was not covered up, became very inflamed overnight. Fortunately, I have a very good doctor, and I went to see them on Monday morning, and they just took the normal precautions: steroids, pain medication, topical treatments for inflammatory skin diseases. And after 3 weeks, I was semi-good. So, but I had to continue working because I was on a time schedule. So thank you to nitrate gloves, it helped out a lot. But what I do wrong and what do I do now. You want to get that up, please? Okay, let's go on to the normal next. Okay, as you can see, normally I wear HEPA filters for breathing, eye protection, ear muffs. Since it's winter, long sleeve shirts, normally a sweatshirt on top of that, long pants and such. Nevertheless, I would wear, say, the jeans and for a sweatshirt for more than one day between washing. And I'd even wash my hands and wrist areas periodically during the day because I have a washroom in my workshop there trying to make everything good. And I have, as I said moments ago, I have HEPA filtration throughout the wood shop. And if I'm doing any machines, like bomb sanders, that's all hooked into the filtration system. So I thought I was doing a reasonable job, and I've never had an issue. Okay. During the recovery, I had to take more severe measures of protection. And I never wore anything for more than the one day, and then it went into the wash. Didn't matter if it was a sweatshirt on top of other shirts, everything. I went through the nitrile gloves during the day, and if they would get just even a little puncture in it, get rid of the gloves, put another one on. I had these skin creams, which were to help rebuild up the skin and get the irritation down. That was being applied several times a day to any exposed area. And every night, you take a really deep shower and make sure you get as much of the particulate matter off as possible. Okay? I try to keep a pretty clean workroom all the time. But this time I made, as I was going through the recovery process, greater attention even to whatever sawdust might be on the sandpaper itself. You know, just start accumulating at the bottom. Don't just count on the vac. I would scrub those down and use a vacuum on it. So I became very particular about any possible leakage. Nothing, I wouldn't leave the shop unless everything I myself had been dusted off and cleaned and wouldn't go upstairs or anywhere. So it was sort of an overkill, but I had to get these projects done up here. And so, shall we go to the next slide? So currently, what do? I use a hybrid of what I've been doing before. And you guys may tell me, Bert, you just weren't doing it properly, and that may be true. So the biggest item is the nitrile gloves. Nitrile gloves. I didn't wear those normally. Now it's all the time. Even when I brought the Bolivian rosewood in today, I do have the nitrile gloves with me, just because I'm feeling good. Why take chances? And I'm much more conscious of exposure to sawdust from any woods. The conclusion is my experience conclusion anyway. Bolivian rosewood is one of the woods they call an exotic wood. And I don't think we should assume that we will have an allergic reaction or are susceptible to allergic reactions just because it's an exotic wood. By definition, what is an exotic wood? Well, we think of it coming from the equatorial areas of around the world, but by definition, it's just any wood not indigenous to North America. And, you know, most of us have no sensitivity when we're working with Baltic birch, or ebony, or mahogany, or purple heart. When I work with Cocoboa, yeah, you'll get one, but most woods we're pretty good on. As a general rule, the more we're exposed to a wood sawdust or other fine particulates, the more sensitive we become to that wood. And from my reading subsequent to that confirms what I've heard in the shop here. Once you develop an exposure to something and a negative reaction, you will always be sensitive to that. But since I wear the gloves when I touch the wood, I don't know how sensitive I am on that. So some of our members have also expressed sensitivity to walnut, which is primarily a North American wood, though it's down in some foreign countries as well. And it is known as a analgesic wood without any harmful chemicals or toxic substances. So it's not a sensitizing wood, but it shows that even if they stay with what's supposed to be really safe woods, you can develop it if your own personal chemistry is sensitive to it. So I was asked just to give just a little overview. How many of you have had this allergic reactions just dealing with some woods? Well, we've got last 3 or 4 out of 5 in there. So anyway, just wanted to share that with you. And
What woods did you, these other people, what wood was it?
Tony, what would yours?
American walnut. Yeah,
Still to this day, you have a problem working with it?
well, if I sand it long enough, it's gonna have the same thing. We have here that this is too much. I guess it's just a length of time and has a chance to build and do its job. So,
Do you wear a mask when you're sanding walnut?
if I'm sanding anything, I wear a mask.
But it still affected you, huh?
Yeah, purple fingers.
Wow.
That dust will stay in the air and it will circulate. It seems like you should really have an outbuilding if you're doing that kind of thing. Or I'll take some things out in the garage and do it, or go out in the yard. But the wind blow all this stuff away, it gets diluted pretty well that way.
Do we have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I have a friend who's a very prolific wood turner, and he takes all of his wood shavings to his wife's horses. She rides horses and has them in the stable and puts them on the ground in the stable. But he never takes walnut, because if he puts the walnut down, he told me it'll kill the horse.
Toxic.
Okay. Well, animals certainly have different reactions. Like, you have a cat or a dog. You don't let them have any grapes, things like that, they kill them. Yeah. With them, so, different species.
Did you have any throat conditions, or did you break out in a rash, or?
My hands like doubled in size, faced it, exceedingly sensitive to everything. And if you want to touch the skin, at the moment you're touching, you say, okay, that feels good, but being a little bit smarter, but I know all I'm doing is making it worse. So they gave a desensitizing medication, and I took that when I felt the need to, but I resisted touching it all. But extensive washing, extensive using of the steroids and the medication, and any handling of an infected area doesn't help it. It just makes you feel good for about 10 seconds.
How long were you under? You know, as far as being sick, but before you got an okay sign to go back to woodworking or something?
Oh, I went back to woodworking right after I got back from the pharmacy, because I had a job to get done.
It's in your blood, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it probably got in my blood. But it took me about 3 weeks before my hands and such had reduced back to normal size. The skin was starting to recover and look more normal. So, yeah.
Dan, you had your hand up.
Sensitivity to wood is usually due to the extractables in the wood. Extractables are chemical and mineral compounds that are in woods. The darker the wood, the more extractables in it. And as you sand these dust particles, they become airborne, they get lodged in between your skin pores, and it causes sensitization. You can work with a substance, not only a wood, but you can work with a substance for years and never have a problem. And then overnight, boom, you get what happened to Berg. I beg to differ with what they said about walnut, because I have seen some reports that suggest walnut is a carcinogen. And so I would be very careful using walnut, even though it is native to North America. But all your exotics like Purple Heart, Sapelli, Ipe, these are, even mahoganies, they're loaded with extractables. So people are gonna, if you're gonna get an sensitivity to a wood, more than likely, it's probably going to be a dark exotic wood. Okay?
Frank?
You know, I take my wood chips and put them out in the backyard, and it's amazing the mushrooms I have growing. And I mean, it's incredible. I mean, all these different mushrooms just started growing. And I think one of the things that, you know, that I've been reading about is that in the forest, these mushrooms, they have a name for it. They're not roots, but they connect all the trees. So that's like you say, the trees take these things up. So you know, it might not be the wood itself, it might be something that the tree took up. And it could be, if you're, you know, a lot of people are allergic to mushrooms, and they're very toxic.
I would not eat those mushrooms, in any case.
But they can be really toxic too, so you can, you know, those things can be taken up.
Ooh. Ben?
What other friendly woods is there that you can use, you don't have to worry about toxicity?
What other woods do we not have to worry about? Normally cherry and oak, white and red oak and maple.
Birch.
Yeah, birch, you know, if you get like the Baltic birch, well, birch is indigenous to the northern part of our country. But you get the Baltic birches, they're basically coming from Sweden or Russia. I've never had a problem with those.
Baltic birch, one thing about Baltic birch, they ran out at one time of our suppliers. But I heard it from Sloan's Wood Shop. I don't know if you used to be familiar with that, but I used to get my straw saw wood from them. And they sent me a letter, they're cutting off all the Baltic birch because they have a shortage on it. Then later on, maybe a month or two later, next thing they got it, but they got it from a different source. But they don't know whether they tried it or not, but they ended up trying, so it was a good. There was no reactions or nothing to it.
Well, I use Baltic birch plywood all the time, never had an issue with it.
See,
Just again, one person.
When I went to American Plywood, I talked to the salesman about Baltic birch, and he was nice enough to show me his leg and everything in his body. He's just full of cancer because he goes to all the shops. So he says, Ben, he said, if you get Baltic birch, make sure you get the 4x8 sheet because it doesn't have the formaldehyde in it. Don't get the 5x5. So he told me about that, his experience, and he was just riddled in CA.
Well, I don't know about the rest, but I've not found 4x8 sheets around here. Everything is the 5x5 because that works best with the metric system for doing cabinet building in Europe.
Mike. One more question, then we got to move on.
Bond plywood's got 4x8s. Bond plywood.
Yes.
Royal Oak or Ferndale. You can buy 4x8 sheets.
Toledo plywood too, down in Toledo. They have 4x8 sheets.
Mike.
So now they don't
Jerry.
have one side that's clean no more. They got footballs on both sides. I guess it's 3B.
Jerry. Mike.
Mike?
Just want to mention there's a good website, excuse me, called the Wood Database. I use it all the time. It identifies wood species from all over the world, because I do a lot of exotic woods, and it'll tell you all the properties, the hardness rate, but it also talks about toxicity, unknown woods. So it's pretty good resource. I go on it all the time.
What's the name of that database?
Called the Wood Resource. No, I'm sorry, the Wood Database.
Wood Database.
I researched that for today's program.
Oh, did you? That's a good.
That's one of the sources. And,
Yeah, it's a really good
it's almost like a Bible of wood, but they are the ones that said in big print that walnut is perfectly safe for us.
Oh, really?
Then you read here, and it's shot so fast.
There's so many different types of walnut too, but that's important.
Yeah, there's about 5 different types.
Hey, Bert, thanks for putting yourself through all that so that you could teach us all the lessons. Glad you did it. All right, Ed's chomping at the bit to do our raffle.
Kevin. Change out the batteries.
4 prizes.
Yeah, okay.
There's kind of good news about this raffle. Our good friend Rich Herbert is not here today.
Got a chance of winning.
Last month he won 3.
Yeah, he buys $20 worth of tickets.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, the rules are for new members, you get, first ticket drawn, you get to choose what you like, okay? But you can't win more than once, okay? And Ben donated this felt for your grinder, for sharpening, okay? Yeah, and he says they're well balanced, and he says they're $39.95.
Anyway, so he donated one of these. Okay?
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks, Ben.
you wanna set them right there?
Yep.
Don't touch the Bolivian rosewood. All right. Let's try the last three numbers. 404. 404. All right.
He's been absent for several
So-
years. He comes back and wins.
That's it, doesn't begin to look again, huh?
All right. You just pick one of those four.
There you go. The Valley got 8-inch ones for $125.
All right. Next ticket. 364.
Right here.
Vince.
Hey, Vince.
You thank me, Vince.
Yeah, I was getting around to that, yeah.
No, those are not cigarettes.
All right. 444.
Triple fours.
All right.
What you got there, Vince?
Two left to pick from, Bill.
Oh, okay.
You can look at it. Just return it.
Thank you.
Good. Last prize. 378. 378. All right. There you go, Rick. That's it. All right. Absolutely.
Real fast. I've got an announcement for everybody. This is preliminary. Dennis and myself are involved in going back to the DIA again with the SAPFM probably this fall. It's all preliminary, okay? And probably the end of October. And what we do is we have put on for two days, Saturday or Sunday, superior furniture woodworking techniques, and we have our furniture there. But what interests the guild more is we also have a toolbox kits that we make up. We ask members to make up these kits, and then they take them down to another part of the museum and have the children come in, put the toolboxes together, they have an art department, and they paint them. So I just bring up the preliminary in case any our group here wants to get involved in building the toolboxes. It's a fun day. Okay, yeah. So heads up, I'll have more information later when we meet with the DIA. Okay.
When will that day be?
Probably about the end of October, right? 25th and 26th, yeah, 25th and 26th are dates we have set up, right? We're going down, we're having a meeting with them in mid-May about finalizing this thing, okay? We used to do it all the time before COVID, and when COVID hit, everything went kaboom. Okay? Anyways, just a heads up, you guys, all right?
And you do the building right there?
We make the kits. What do you mean building?
You make kits ahead of time?
Yes, make the kits ahead of time. I already have the plan, so it's all, a little simple little toolbox, right? The kit put together. Yeah, so I'll have the plans I drew up, so everybody works the same plans. You pre-drill the holes, and the kids come in, they just nail them together, and then they go off and paint them. It's fun. The kids like it, okay? Yeah.
All right, so Ed will keep us
I'll keep it
surprised with that.
Right.
Okay.
Count me in. Count me in.
Now, we are ready for our main event today.
Okay, so,
Member Steve Stram.
Jerry,
You've been a member here for quite a while.
Okay, you got it.
Couple days.
And I will tell you, folks, having previewed this presentation, there is a ton of data on it. We don't have handouts for it, but Steve has given us the PDF version of the entire presentation. So I will be emailing it out to everybody in the guild.
well, the link,
So you can watch it and, pay more attention. You don't have to be taking notes. You'll have the entire thing. Okay? And it'll include photos that Dan will be taking. Those will end up on the website as well. Plus, you'll be able to see the entire video on YouTube. So, Steve, take it away.
Hi. So, I'm going to talk about veneering. And actually, it's titled vacuum veneering, but we're going to go into the other ways you can do veneering that may not be vacuum.
I don't think he's right.
And why and why not.
It is.
So, we're going to go kind of subject to this, why would you have an interest in veneering?
There we go.
There. Okay, everybody back here? So we're gonna get into why would you have any interest in veneering? You know, what is veneer? How to use it? Tools and supplies, glue options, experience, which is basically the blunders I've made and why you shouldn't repeat them, and sources, and some of the options that you can do with veneer. And if you're interested, kind of go through your head, why would I use vacuum instead of press, calls, or clamps? We're going to get to that on page 8, so bear with us. Why would you veneer? You know, sometimes it just comes down to the fact that you want to make something or somebody wants you to make something. Somebody related, somebody that's married to, want something made with a species or type of wood that you can't really get available, or you don't really want to spend money. So if you wanted to make something, there's things in veneer that you're really not going to find, regardless of what wood that you can afford, or I can afford, that you can afford to get a solid board of, this is it's Brazilian cherry. You know, you're going to get woods that have got a lot of figure in them. Something that's kind of like eye candy. This here, I believe, is black walnut, but it's a really black walnut. I think there's another piece here. So you can end up with something that really is going to be something that's going to stand out, and you know, you're really not going to go to a local or regional and buy 4/4, 6/4, or maybe under 12 bucks a board foot, you know, that you're going to then use to make. And, you know, you can get a lot of different things that you can do. And this is Wenge, you know. This here is actually shop sawn veneer. Friend had some black walnut. Got a bit of a crotch in it. And you can tell that I haven't stored it very well. So you can get a lot of veneer in, so it's a situation where you couldn't make something with that type that's that you can use, that you can get. Good. And the other thing is, a lot of times you're going to go to a place that's got exotics, and I go to LL Johnson's, but you know, LL Johnson's, you know, if you get exotics, you know, you're lucky to get anything more than 8 inches wide or something like that, and that's another thing. How do we get back and forth to the?
I'll flip it.
Okay. Here's an example. You know, this is mahogany, and you know, if you look at it, it's $2.25 a board per square foot. But if you wanted to buy it in solid wood, it'd be like $7.95 or $8.95 a board foot, and you might be limited to how wide you can get it. And you know, so you know, it actually can be a cost issue too, that you can veneer rather than using solid wood to make something. Yeah, okay, here. case, mahogany's $225 or it's $595 at L.L. Johnson's at 1,000 board foot, you know, and then once you get it out of the wood shop, then you gotta cut it down, and you're paying that for, you know. So it can be a cost savings. The other thing is you can buy multiple wide widths of what they call flitch and make a large product all the same. When you go to buy an exotic from a store, a lot of times the number of boards are limited, the length is limited, this and that. So you're kind of mixing maybe several different trees, you know, to make it, rather than getting a flitch, consecutive ones, that now it's all going to match. And you can get it in quarter sawn, rift sawn, any kind of feature you want as far as the grain for how you're going to like it to look. You know, so casework panels are very common for veneer, but you can also veneer face frames and legs to match. So you can make an entire cabinet and it's all going to look the same because it's all really from the same batch of veneer. Where if you're making it out of solid wood, you're going to have a terrible time trying to get into a world of toners and this and that, and you know it can be done. But so the other thing, the functional strength, because some species of wood are soft, you know, they're kind of like these that, or they're brittle, and you'd really like to have the base of it to be a material that's going to have the strength and durability. So, you know, there's some good reasons for doing veneer. You know, some of them cosmetic, some of them structural, some the fact that you want this whole large piece to look the same. And there's, you know, an example with mahogany. You know, what is veneer? Veneer is just simply a thin wood. You know, I mean, it's all it is. It's just, you know, it's not 4/4, 5/4, not 1/2 inch. You know, and they cut it in different ways. There's rotary cutting and less than graphics here a little bit, and then it's done lengthwise. You know, and the thing about if you think like a pencil sharpener, they take an entire log and put it in a cutter. And actually, if you've never seen one of these things, you should really go on YouTube and look for how they slice it on it. It's fantastic, fascinating. But before the log is sliced in veneer, it's often steamed or soaked in a bath of hot water, cooked. And that's when veneers can be sliced without tearing or splitting. And then after it comes off the slitting, they will then cut it into the widths that whoever specified to do it for them wants. And, you know, and then it's pressed flat, between heated flat, and bundled into stacks in the same order. And, you know, then again down here, a flitch is when the sequential sheets are cut in order. So this is where you can vary up panels across the front. And here, if you want to do it, to go around the box or around a case to where it looks like an endless grain. So the bandsaw setup, you can cut your own veneer. Those veneers are normally thicker, you know, because you still got to contend then with trying to get them flat afterwards, so you're not going to cut them at a 1/16 of an inch. Again, simply thin wood. So common veneer that you're going to buy, all the veneer here that I've shown, all this, you're going to find is 0.02. Okay, so you look up here, you know, and it's really, you know, on the low end. And if you're doing them it'd be hard to get to 1/8, I would say, on a bandsaw and not lose a lot. The person that did this on their bandsaw has one of these monster, old cast iron 18-inch solid wheel bandsaws, 220, and it runs at an incredibly high speed, very high speed. Before we go away, and you can get, let me see. Yeah, okay. So one of the other things, you can get veneer in many places. We'll talk about it later, but I started out getting all my veneer from Toledo Plywood, quite honestly. And they sell packs like this. This one's cherry. The fact of the matter is, they were selling them, I want to say $9 a pack. Woodcraft and was selling them for like $18 a pack. So you can, and it had the same darn label on it, you know. So it's just, you know, you can start out like that. So, go back to
Steve, is there the same concern with veneers for allergies, or is it not as bad because the wood's boiled and cooked and stuff?
you know, and I think it was said earlier, I've never had a problem. But I think with a veneer, you're not really sanding it down to use it. In other words, you're not, you know, it's a flat, and you're just you're gonna bond it to something else. And when you're sanding, you're not gonna sand that much because it's only 20 thousandths. So you're not gonna take an 80 grit, you know, piece of paper to it and make a lot of dust. You know, you're kind of protected from that. I can't say it's not possible because you are going to still get, I would say that listening to it, I kind of always kind of knew it, but if you think about it, when you get down to sanding at, you know, 220, 320, you're creating some pieces that your particles that, you know, could very easily go into your respiratory system or get on your hands and this and that. So I'm thinking that the final gloves are really, nitrile gloves are actually an excellent answer. So this is rotary cut in the upper left. You know, and it comes off, and again, this is great to watch on YouTube. Just watch when they do this. Okay. They got this huge, long, 20-foot log, big, and they got a knife, and it comes off. It's pretty interesting. But that's how you can get veneer. If you're going to do a large table or whatever, you can get a piece that's going to cover the entire table, you know, without a seam. The crown cut veneer, that's actually used by a lot of manufacturers. It's actually, if you look at car interiors or dashboards, when you go to anybody here work with the design offices in an OEM car manufacturer? Picky bastards. Anyways, they want every car to look the same. So when they look at a dashboard, they want the first one that came off the first year to look exactly like the one that came off the fourth or fifth year. And same with steering wheels. They want, because on the steering wheel, when you got, there's no such thing as a wood steering, but there's a wood-looking steering wheel. Those are called shells. They actually use the veneer. They use a much thinner shell, and they make it as a shell, which then gets molded onto the form underneath it. But they want it all, they want that look. So it's important for them to get the crown cut veneer. And they'll want to get multiple trees, you know, suppliers must be pulling their hair out, is all I can say. That's crazy. And on the bottom, you get where they actually, so if you're doing the rotary cut, you know, you're really just getting that top. So if if you wanted a veneer that's going to have a rift sawn or quarter sawn look, they then cut it a different way. So there's different ways that they cut to make veneer. There's also other cuts that are done for specific purposes. It all depends on who the designer is, the customer is. They're all over the place. We'll get to talk, I think I'll show you why. Anyway, there's a company called Certainly Woods. And it probably, so when you go to buy veneer, you can go to different places, and when you go to buy it, they'll actually have a picture of the actual sheet that you're going to buy. Or it'll be the top sheet in a flitch. There might be 40 sheets, but they're all going to be the same. Okay? And you'll go through them and you'll see which ones you really want. And they've got common, they've got uncommon, they've got different species from around the world. Now, I don't know if the ones that are exotics are actually sliced overseas or not. No idea. Never thought about that. But, so, veneer is really, in our case, veneer is really raw wood. I would imagine there's some kind of plastics or something that are used as veneer, but you know, in all of our cases. And, you know, veneer, of course, it can be applied to a substrate. So you put it onto something, because it's so thin, it's useless as it is. And there's a number of different substrates, different ways you make substrates. The very traditional way was to use raw wood veneer, and usually shop sawn and with hide glue. And you would put it, and the interesting thing is, I tried that once, it didn't work so well. But the hide glue they would put it on right on other solid wood, you know, and it looks easy. I've watched I don't know how many YouTubes, but it didn't work for me. And then there are paperback veneers, and this is a sample of a paperback veneer. You buy it, it's in a quote. You notice the width, and you can buy paperback veneers. Well, there's a place in Ferndale called Coles. They sell it in 4x8 sheets. So it had to start with a pretty large log to get that. But anyways, this here is maple. And it doesn't say what the size is. But anyways, it's maple. And if you look at the inside, it's got paper. You know, it's got some kind of, I don't know. So, the fact is you can actually vacuum veneer it, but it's commonly used, if you've ever gone into a lobby of an office or a store and the wall looks like it's wood. It's probably paperback veneer. They buy it in 4x8 sheets, or actually 5x10 sheets. And what the people that do it, they'll go in there and they actually spray an adhesive on the wall. They put up the paperback, and then they use what's called, it's a scraper actually they call it. It's plastic here, and they just spread it on. And when they get done, it looks like wood.
Is it contact cement that's being used?
Yeah, some kind of a contact.
So you're applying it to both surfaces, and once it's on, that's it.
Yeah, it's actually, you can actually buy it at like Home Depot or something. It's really but it's kind of a, yeah, it's like a contact cement. But, you know, it's kind of, I kind of always say it's for a company that wants to look, but they don't want to invest in the real thing, paneling, yeah.
And I know with the paperback, you get a better veneer, but the truest, they don't like working with it. Well, why is that?
Well, paperback is much thinner than regular veneer. Much thinner. You know, if you look at this, and this, they're both about the same thickness, but this includes the paper. So,
Does it come pre-finished?
huh?
Does it come pre-finished?
If you buy it from a company like this, Colts in Ferndale, they have in 4x8 sheets that are pre-finished. Because you can, yeah, it's up here. So it's 20 thousandths if you get the raw paper, raw veneer. Paperbacks are 15 thousandths of actual wood. And then they make up for the thickness with paper. So it's actually a little more fragile, if you would. And so they'll put it on with some kind of a scraper. And it's meant, to me, it's more of a temporary thing, I guess. I don't know. It's no real experience. Why vacuum? Well, because there's other ways to do it. You can use hammer veneering, you know, and you can do with high glue. That's been done for decades, centuries actually. You can use a book press. You can use sandbags or caulk. Put weight on it. Not a problem. Well, kind of a problem. Vacuum gives you constant pressure over the entire surface. It's going to be flatter. If your substrate is flat, the veneer is going to be flat. If you're just pressing it in some manner, if the glue has not got enough force in, unless it's a hydraulic press, you know, which you'll see in industry, then it can press it down enough that it can get the glue to all just actually even out. Otherwise, you know, in one of our shops, really vacuum is the best way. Forms for non-flat surfaces are easier with vacuum since the number of clamping positions. Now, it's kind of like if you're going to veneer a skateboard. You know, there's no way in the world you got enough clamps to get everything down to hold it down right. You have to use a bag with vacuum. It's a non-flat. It's also if you were going to make a door that had a curve on it. You can't make cauls or clamps or anything that's going to get it, the veneer to stay on the substrate. If you think it may need to be repaired or removed later, then hide glue. It's one of the biggest things about hide glue is you can heat it up and get it off, put a new piece in, repair the piece, whatever you want to do. It is one of the biggest, you know, people that restore or repair period furniture, that's one of the benefits of hide glue. And tools and supplies, you know. One of the things is you got to have a way to cut veneer. Veneer is kind of an interesting thing. It's not, since it's so thin, it's not really friendly. Wanting to be cut. It's apt to crack. You know, it's apt to twist, warp. But what you have to do is figure out how you're going to cut it. And if you're cutting with the grain and cutting against the grain, it's really kind of a, you have to have a double way of doing it. One of the things that everybody that does veneer gets is you buy a veneer saw. And you do need, if you want to cut something straight, what you're gonna do is, I use this block of wood, and I just put some sandpaper, so it holds it down, so that it can, you know, hold it down, and then you can work the saw. Now the blade has to be sharpened so that, kind of like some of the Japanese saws, hand saws, where there's no set on the blade that's going against your fence. So when you're done, you've got a straight edge, okay? When you get into cutting cross grain, it gets to be a little crazier, because as you're going with the teeth, if there's any kind of a little crack or something like this, it's going to want to push it, accentuate the crack.
Where's see the crack?
I like this one. I didn't make the crack, I just had the crack. Anyway, so what you want to do then is use a tool like this that I found the best. Now there's one other way to do it. This is a shop-made tool that works. And what it is, it's a single-edge blade, and actually it's a double-edged blade that fits in here. And you then again have to create a fence of some sort. And it works faster and better than the darn saw that everybody has. I'll pass it along. This is there's nothing big about the shape. Just matters you have to inset the blade in here with 2 screws, so you can take the screws out, replace the blade. This is an aluminum piece. You can make it out of wood. You know, it's really not hard. One of the ways I've started coming up with is if you're doing veneering that has multiple parts, and you want to trim it and cut it, one of the things I get into, I've gotten into, is making geometric designs. And I don't know if anybody was into geometry or the hat thing, the big thing that was last year where somebody invented or came up with the design of a repeating shape that could then be placed. But anyway, and then there's another one. But anyways, when you go to do these things, you then have to cut the veneer. You've got all these shapes coming together. So it gets to be a problem. And one way to get around that, to me, I found, is use a roller. So the thing about this is that as it goes down along something, it's putting the force more down. You're not pushing like you were with a razor blade. So the force is coming down. It is very less apt to do anything, cause the veneer to do anything. I bought this just because it's a great fence for doing this. And that's what it's actually made for. It's actually made for cutting vinyl. So what you do with this is just the same thing as with the others. You just, but it rolls across, and it doesn't. Actually, if you kind of, I don't know if you can hear, but when I was doing it with the saw are doing it with single edge blade, you could hear it clipping the grain as it went through. This is really more of a, and maybe if I pull that back. Ah, there it is. Yeah. So again, you got a nice straight, you get as straight an edge as you do as your fence is. It all comes down to your fence.
Looks like a pizza cutter.
Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah.
what is that called, Steve? And can you get replacement blades?
Pizza
Replace
cutter.
the blade, yeah. The only
Pizza
thing
cutter.
I'll tell you about these, you can buy them at Michael's craft store, or you can buy them on Amazon for like half the price for whatever reason, the blades.
You can get an off-brand more than that at Dollar Tree too.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm saying my wife's got one of
Is it made for veneers or just?
No, actually, I don't think it's made for, no, it's made for crafting. Made for crafting. I think it's used a lot in the vinyl industry. I don't know where it came, where it originated from, but,
And paper. Paper cutouts.
Go back, slide there. So yeah, here's where you see the, it's interesting, here's the commercial version of that slicing knife I showed you. And here's another one of the roller ones that are available. And here is the veneer saw that you see all over the place.
So with the grain, you're better off using the saw?
Yeah. With the grain, it's kind of like, it's like if you're cutting with a knife, if you're a carver or something. If you're going with the grain, you know, it can, especially, well, being so thin, you want to have something that's going to work better. And I think the saw does work better. The roller does work well with the grain also, because the force is now going down and not pushing it. You know, it's, you know, my experience, I'm using this much, much more than the saw at this time.
If you're doing a curved edge, roller would be much better.
I've never tried a curve with the roller, actually. That's a good question. If I'm going to do a curve with veneer, well, I've got a diode laser that I cut if they're smaller parts. And that's like these here where there's small things or these round things. That would work. I don't know how you would cut those with a knife. But what I would do is if I needed a round in veneer, and I didn't have a laser ability or some kind of other method, I would just cut it bigger and then put a template over it, and you know, cut it with a bandsaw, scroll saw, whatever, jigsaw, and then put a template over there and use a router to get it to that shape. Veneer in its raw, you know, like in this state, is kind of temperamental. You know, it'll want to do things. The one thing that helps, and I don't have it here, but you would use veneer softener, and that hydrates the veneer, which does make it easier. When you go look at the old, some of the things with marquetry, or the flower petals and all, a lot of that was done with people with scalpels. Very small knives, scalpels, or blades that are, you know. I'm a geometry guy,
know, the art side, I don't even draw, I can't even write cursive, so, yeah.
What's the wattage on your laser?
What's that?
Does it need to be a very powerful laser to cut that?
Oh, 5 watt,
What?
5 watt. And the reason for me with 5 watt is that the kerf is 0.08 millimeters. And the software lets you offset it so that you've got perfect sizes every time.
Are you using light burn?
Yes. Light burn is several other types out there, but I would say light burn takes all the problems out of being close.
Would there be an instance where you would want to adhere it to what you were working with before you cut it? Or would you always cut it before?
All right, well, I've never figured out how you would do that, because, well, actually, I take that back. That's where something like hide glue in the old school way of doing veneering. You would cut one piece, you would lay it down, and you would put it down with the hide glue. You could then put a mating part up to it, and then glue that in, because the hide glue is going to react to heat, you're good. But I don't know if you can do something this tight with it, you know. So it's different thing. I would say that now when I cut it on the laser, you got to have a vacuum table under it to hold the veneer down, so the veneer doesn't want to move on you. Just like anything you're going to cut, you don't want it to move while you're cutting it. So, so we've got the tools up here, the saw, the tape. Now we're going to talk about the tape. Hopefully. Yeah. There are all kinds of tapes down here. And they all have certain purposes, quite honestly. This tape has got the hole, the one you see there with the holes in it, this is this tape. The magic of this tape is that you use, put water in this, and then this tape, you want to use it, you roll the tape in, and one side has got an adhesive that's water activated. And that's what you would use if you wanted items to be together tight. Because as it dries, when it dries fast, it pulls them together. So it's got a bit of, it creates that tension, okay? Which is, you can use it in that case. In other cases, if they're larger pieces, on something like this, I just regular old blue tape, because it's not that crazy, okay? You then, if you want, when you're going to when you put together your piece of veneer, like say with all of this on it, or even a flat piece of veneer, you're just doing a panel, you would use this brown tape to hold it at one side to the substrate. You do not ever want to do it on multiple sides.
Why?
Because the glue actually will cause the veneer to, the veneer is pretty much dry. Once you get it on the glue, it's hydrating. It'll then want to move a bit. And if you tie it down on more than one side or two opposite sides, you're going to end up with a bubble in the end. You're going to take it out of the bag, you're going to look at it, oh, snot. And being veneer, it's not the fact you're going to sand it out. It's only 20 thousandths, right? Come on, you can't. So this is what you would do, and you would, like this particular one, I would have put a piece down here. Just because you'll find it's interesting when you put the veneer down on, you've glued the substrate. Now you put the veneer down, you can actually move it around. You know, I mean, it's floating on the glue. So you want to put some kind of piece of tape there to hold it so it stays on your substrate. And then this is kind of like, if you got something that's complex, maybe like this or this, you know, pieces, or call it a chessboard. Let's say you did a chessboard with squares. You know, I've got a vacuum table I use that I lay it all out on, make sure, you know, you go over with a magnifying glass at my age, and you want to make sure there's no gaps. And then you can use this wide tape. The nice thing about this wide tape is it's not very strong, but you put it over the whole thing. So now all these pieces are relatively together, and you can do it and it comes out right. Or a better chance of it. Which then comes up to the thing of, go back to now you can end up applying the glue, so the adhesive. So you apply the adhesive to what would be your backer material, or your substrate, okay? And so envision that these are my two pieces of veneer, and this is my substrate, plywood. People use plywood, some people use MDF, some people use what is called bumper core. They'll actually make their own core. One of the reasons they'll make their own core is if you make it a door, let's say for a cabinet, and you're going to veneer it, if you make it out of 3/4 inch MDF or 3/4 inch Baltic birch, the weight of that door is pretty crazy. You know, it's a heavy door. You got to really make sure that your face frame is right, you got the screws are right, this and that. So what a lot of people do is they'll make their own core, and they'll make it out of basswood. They'll cut it in slats. If this was it, they would do it. They would cut the Baltic basswood vertically, glue them together, and they're not really sure. They're not really going to clamp the hell out of them, really. And then they'll put, then they'll flatten it to a planer sander, however you want to go to it, and then they'll put another piece of veneer going the opposite way against the grain. And then they'll be able to then put the veneer on it. But the door is like anywhere from 1/2 to 2/3 the weight. So one of the things I've found is on your substrates, you always want to mark off one side and about two sides, two adjacent sides. Okay? Because then you want to make sure that you line the two sheets up on each side. So that when you're all done, and you're looking at it, you say, oh, snot. This one's way over here, and this one's over here, and now I don't have what I want. I don't have a wide enough piece left to finish what I want. Or you start out with a sheet that's the same size as your, that's it. But anyways, this here, so if we're talking about the sandwich here, I call it a sandwich, or glue. what you want to do is, you're going to put the glue on your substrate. You're then going to put your veneer on. You're then going to put your tape of choice. I always put it at the bottom of the grain because it's more apt to go this way or that way, so, you know. And then turn it over and glue this side. Place it in your starting spot down there. And now you're there. Now, if you see like you've got a crack, like this thing's got a crack, you can go back and put a piece of tape on that. So let's see how this is all gone together here.
Kevin.
Again. Spreading the glue. Okay, so maybe I'm jumping ahead. Several ways of doing it. Different people have different ideas. I have mine. Others right or wrong. You want to put the glue on and you want it to be on evenly, and you don't want it too heavy. My tool of choice is a roller. It's a foam roller. Now this works great with PVA glues, which are what I use. And I'll have a picture of them in a minute. But you can roll it on, and you want to look at it. You want to make sure that it's really almost transparent. Okay? There's another school of thought that's used trowel with a small end. And you can get these in any hardware, they're actually going to an area where they do tiling, or anything like that in a big box store. And same thing, put the glue on and make sure it's not, you don't have any heavy spots, right? Okay, Kevin? So if you're going to do a large panel, they sell these. If you're going to do like a big sheet, this roller here is this is kind of like another roller, but you put the glue in the top, take it off, and you can, the roller is under here, so it's a self-filling roller. So if you want to do a big panel, they're actually incredibly cheap to me. They're like only 15 bucks. I've just never had any intention of doing that big of a panel. And then they sell a roller. Yeah, this one. But what I use, and really the roller doesn't, the only thing the roller does is if you've got two mating parts of veneer, and after you started to vacuum, and if you can see it, you can press it back down again. Sometimes it'll raise or move, and you want it can't, but it's, I'm going to just say it's not, normally when it's doing something like that, you've done something wrong, and you're trying to put a Band-Aid on a mistake, but it's out there. two primary types. One is vinyl and the other one's polyurethane. Vinyl is heavier, even if it's the same thickness of vinyl, the same polyurethane. Even if they're the same thickness, the poly is so much easier to work with. It also will pull into cavities around edges and this and that so much better than the vinyl. And it used to be that people started out with vinyl because polyurethane bags were like 3 to 4 times as much as vinyl. Even though you coveted polyester and polyurethane, holy geez, you know, cost was crazy for, you know, if you're just a hobbyist, let's say, small shop. Now, vacuum sources, vacuum pumps. You know, you can connect the pump directly to the bag, or what you're going to use as your bag, or you can use a pressure activated. Vacuum's only necessary for most of the glues that are used that are non-epoxy glues. Really, the glues are only, you only have to keep them under vacuum for 45 minutes. And actually, if you leave them on more than 45 minutes for exotics and some kind of woods, it'll actually cause mold on the wood. So you really don't want to go, you know, but, you know, and the reservoir is helpful with diaphragm pumps, not so much with vane pumps. And I use cold pressed glue or powdered plastic resin glue. And that powdered plastic resin is actually an epoxy, and that's required for shop zone veneer. So what I got up here is, this is one I made probably 20 years ago. You know, I bought the mechanism from this company, Joe Woodworker, that's, you know, and, you know, what you do on it, there's a valve that closes the line, so you can turn it on. I wanted to bring this in and bring it and set it up like this. The sound is, you know, not offensive, definitely not the noisiest tool in the house, you know. And right now what it's doing is just pressurizing the tanks. And I think I have it set at 22 inches. And when it gets to 22 inches, it'll stop.
That's 22 inches of mercury.
Mercury, correct?
That's about 2 atmospheres.
So
it's 28 pounds.
and I think theoretically 30 inches is the hypothetical perfect vacuum. 28 is pretty much the, you know, I've gotten this up to 27 inches. The problem with it, if you get a higher vacuum, is the fact that you can pull the glue up through the veneer, if it's a coarse veneer. You know, a lot of exotics or a lot of these are probably prone to pull the glue out through if you had too high of a vacuum or if you left it too long. And then you get into the factory, you then have to, again, wait, you know, with Band-Aids, but there's no way you can fix it really, you know. Because if you start sanding it, you're not gonna get anywhere.
So you say 22 inches, or 22 millimeters, you're good?
22 inches.
Inches.
Yeah, that's really all you really need. 22 inches is like 1,400 PSI of pressure holding it down, so it's more than enough. So this one shut off because it's got the chambers filled. This is the same pump, same brand of pump. This one's kind of cute because it's got both vacuum and, so if you want to use your airbrush or your vacuum, basically the same size, same noise level. You know, 4 amps, this is 4.2 amps.
What's the cost on those?
You're getting ahead of the game, but I'll tell you what it is. If you want to buy them today, I think if you go to, you can buy them from Rockler, and I think they're, you know, prices on them.
You can use one of those gift certificates.
That gets you the label.
I want to say it's $400 if you want to buy one, and it's up here somewhere. We'll get to it in a bit. I paid $25 for this one, and I paid $40 for this one. You got to look at auctions. You got to look at where laboratories are changing out things. Both of these came from University of Michigan Property Disposal. You're not there all the time, but
Is there a switch, or how do you set the 22 inches of mercury in?
well, this pump, if it wasn't hooked to anything else, you couldn't, okay? But there's actually an adjustment here, since I bought this auto shut-off that does it. On this pump, there's actually a screw here that you can set either for the air pressure or the vacuum level. So, but otherwise, you know, if you only had like this pump, you know, you couldn't do it. You know, it's just pumps.
Does the size of the veneer dictate how long you should hold it under vacuum?
Yeah, well, no, but the glue does. If you were doing shop sawn veneer, you know, you really need to use epoxy, two-part epoxy. Two-part epoxy can take up to, if you just put it in a bag and bring it under vacuum, it could be 10 to 12 hours. If you put it under vacuum and you throw a heating blanket on it, it can be 2 or 3 hours. So, yeah, it's the epoxy is will cure much faster under heat. The other views, not so much, doesn't affect it. So, the time under vacuum is kind of dependent on the adhesive that you're using.
The time under vacuum, is that an issue with a paper-backed veneer as far as glue bleed through?
Now, I wouldn't think there'd be any problem with bleed through because you got the paper. It's not going to go through the paper. With regular veneer, you just got grain, and you can, if it's a coarse grain or something like, then you can actually have it come up through it. So it leaked down a little bit. Of course, this is shop made, PVC from Home Depot, and you're not going to vouch for the craftsmanship.
Is there, Steve, is there a manufacturer's name on those pumps? I mean, is that a?
Gas, G-A-S-T.
G-A-S-T.
Yep. And the
Gas.
company actually is, I think they're, I don't know if they're still in,
It's G-A-S.
GAST, but they're, they used to be out of, still, I don't know, by L.L. Johnson, out on the west side of the state of Michigan.
Steve, I didn't quite understand, if that's a vacuum, what's the purpose of having a tank with a vacuum? I understand the purpose of having a tank with a compressor, but not with a vacuum.
Good segue, good segue. So, what you do is now that I've got, let's say I've got my glue on, I mean, here's my, I've got my sandwich in here, got the glue on it, and this is a platen. This is one way of doing it, it's not the only way, we'll get into that. So now, what I'm going to do is put this into the bag.
Is that a vinyl or polyurethane bag?
That's polyurethane bag. You'd see me still struggling if it was vinyl.
Further by the pump.
Are you looking
Look
for
for
your
the pump.
sandwiches?
It's by the pump. By the pump.
Huh?
No, that's not what you're looking for.
No, look, I had some more breather mesh, I thought, but, or small piece. One of the things you need to use with vacuum, where you have the inlet, is it has to be able to not to have it come on a surface that's going to block the tube. So you put what's called breather mesh in here. You actually wouldn't need it with this particular because I've got slots on here, so it doesn't really need it, but it doesn't hurt. So then what you do is you put, I got it in the bag. These are, depending on your age, these are old shower curtain with the caps, you know. And put this on here. Now there are bags that have, I'll show you the other bag in a second. There are bags that have Ziploc, zippers alike. This bag has got a, quote, Ziploc. I still use these. So now we've got it in the bag. Now here's the purpose of the chambers. Once I open it, it takes seriously less time for the bag to evacuate. The vacuum is dropped down to 5 inches. We had a bigger tank here, so it's not faster, but so be it. And it's now starting to fly. You kind of see it pull down a lot. And you gotta have the little connection down. By the time I get to L.L. Johnson's or, that, I might as well go all the way to the lake.
Yes, you know, I had a question.
Dale?
Did you use a pump for like you would use for an AC to suck all the lines out of the, suck all the air out?
Yes and no.
That's good.
You can't. The problem is with one of those pumps, as I've read, they're not meant run for like, so if you have a chamber and a switch, it could work. The problem is they're not meant to run for 30, 40 minutes at a time. They're only designed and built to run for 5 to 10 minutes to evacuate the,
I did talk to manufacturers, because I got one, some AC evacuation pump. And they said you could run it continuously, that wasn't a problem. I ran it for hours.
Okay.
For me, the problem with, you gotta be careful, they've got an oil in them. And you need to make sure, take a line and run it outside or your shop will be fogged. That's the line.
Thank you very much. What would the downside be of just eliminating the pump and the vacuum bag and just using contact cement? Would that bleed through the wood?
no. Actually, there's actually a contact cement you can get, it's meant for linear, so it tells you.
So it's not the same as like a plastic laminate contact cement?
Yeah. So, but, contact cement, white glue, tight bond, never fully dries solid. So, over the years, as humidity occurs, and wherever the part is, it could start to come off.
Why can't you use the PVA glues on the shop side?
It doesn't actually, this doesn't hold it well enough.
But use them on hardwood all the time, right, on drawing board.
But the PVA also isn't, when you use it, I guess I can't tell you for absolute sure, but I know that that's what it's, part of it is that one of the things that a downside of, and I use this stuff, and there's a lot of people that are really in the business use Unibond too, which is a two-part epoxy for wood and wood.
Did you use hide glue?
Huh?
Did you use hide glue?
What do you actually use that?
I'm talking about for, the pressing, you put it on the substrate.
Yeah. That's what was done for hundreds of years.
What?
For putting for your solid veneer wood on solid wood.
Right.
So how did you hear about it, that they were for sale at the school? Was it on Marketplace? How did you know they were selling that?
Selling what?
How did you know when they were selling the vacuum equipment? How did you hear about it?
How'd you acquire it?
U of M's property.
Yeah. Oh, these pumps?
Yeah, how do you know when they're available?
Well, it used to be before COVID you could just go up there at any time you wanted and, you know, walk through there. And for a while there, they used to have them all the time. Now you can only, since COVID, they've closed down the public access part to the warehouse, and you have to go online. And you can, when they come up, you can either buy it now or bid if there's an auction. But these don't go for auction because they're not priced enough to do that. But I haven't seen one on there in a while, so, but you just have to keep watching and looking.
Just so you know, Veneer Supplies has that pump about that size for $226 right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And the bigger, the 5 CFM is about
Yeah,
$350.
this is the bigger one.
So, I mean, yeah.
So what if you wanted to do a curved surface? Could you just put it in the bag
Yeah.
without that fixture?
Yeah. Now, with a curved surface, what you really, so if you're doing a curved surface, there's two ways of doing it. If some people will build out of bendy plywood and 2 3/4, they'll make a form and then put it over that. You can, that's one thing. The other thing is, if you've got a surface that's not going to, you could just put the entire thing into the bag. And you could just put it in the bag, and the bag will conform to it. The problem that can come up with that is if the substrate, in other words, the substrate has to have that curve, right? So, you know, will the substrate somehow open up or not? I don't, you know, that's another, most of the time, and we're going to actually see something like that here in a few, in one of the next slides. And actually, yeah, wait a couple slides. We'll show you an exact, maybe something more down there, a better answer. Hey, Kevin, we'll go back to the. Here are my weapons of choice. I didn't bring them all because when I started packing up and you take a gallon jug of 4 or 5 different things, then I wasn't going to carry it. But I use this paperback. I know this is for paperback only. You know, glue. I use this is softener. Here's another softener. Softeners are really good, and we'll get into that in a minute. And then I use UltraCat that I showed you, and then West Systems. West Systems I use more primarily for shop song type things. A lot of people in the industry a lot of people that are doing it professionally like Unibond. Right or wrong, what I've read about Unibond, you really need to do something about ventilation and masks and everything like that. It's not that this UltraCat, does start out as a powder, and when it's a powder, I use a mask. Whether it's necessary, you know. Shops on veneer and this, you know, why would you use epoxy? And that's the other key thing is if you don't want to bleed through, Unibond and epoxies don't bleed through. They're heavier, which my own impression is it's a heavier adhesive. So it will not come through the grain or the figure of the woods.
Steve, if you can tell us a little bit about his, how come he has a small reservoir on his unit that he put together?
What was that?
Ken's unit that he put together, how come he has a smaller reservoir? Can you tell us a little bit of that, or Ken mention it to us?
Well, the thing is, Ken bought a kit. Yeah, and that's what happened. We got go pretty quick.
Can you go back to the word chart on the blues, please, somehow? I think it's back one slide or two. Yes, is that the one that was, I think that was you one, you had one blue? No. That's just it? No.
I think I know.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the safety tape. All these epoxies, whether they're Unibond or the Cat 5 that I'm showing you about, and I've, and it could apply to the West Systems. So the West Systems isn't a powder. Most of the time when you have a powder epoxy, the powder is what's the problem. As you say, this resin powder. That's where the problem is. Here's some more blue information. We got to really speed up here.
Again, everyone's going to get a copy of this.
Yeah.
A link to the copy.
So, here are the different kinds of, now you can even get a Harbor Freight picture. If you were asking about a curved surface, this is with Aurora kit. They do a lot, because that was primarily invented or came up with to do surfboards and skateboards that got curves.
What kind of vacuum can that pump?
Huh?
That hand pump, how much vacuum can that pump?
We don't know.
We don't know.
There's no gauge.
Yeah.
But I use that. That's what I have.
But
And everything I do is with the Roar
there's
pump.
a lot of
Everything is with-
history. A lot of history to say that. And again, from U of M, I picked up a couple of these pumps, which are a whole lot of storage. Anyway,
These sound perfectly good pumps.
okay, we already went through this. Yeah, curing under vacuum, I think we touched on this. The one thing I'd point out is epoxy can cause a sharp edge that will cut your skin. It'll rip your skin right off. You have to make sure when you take it out of under vacuum that you handle it gingerly. You know, you are aware of that. And the first thing you want to do is take a file or something to the edge. Because it is, and the thing about epoxy is when it cures, it is hard. It's as good as a knife. Okay? Okay, I think I've talked on this. Don't lock, try to lock them. You do not, if you lock it in more than one place, that's called buckling. Donated veneer. Yeah, that can be great. But a lot of effort. Notes are given away about being stored in a manner that cause serious cracking and warping and dry as snot. So you got to soften it to